Good morning. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Fall 2020 State of the University Address here on the campus of East Tennessee State University. And on behalf of our Board of Trustees, I am honored to provide this address here in the Powell Hall of the Martin Center, the long-awaited home of the arts at East Tennessee State University. I look forward to welcoming the entire campus community to this space because this space is special, it's distinctive, and it brings a lot of the things that we love about this university to life. And I look forward to that life returning to campus once we move past COVID. It's difficult to provide a State of the University address without discussing COVID. And this morning, we'll walk through how we as a university have responded to COVID. I'm going to give an update on enrollment, talk some about the budget, and then we'll launch the second phase of the work of the Committee for 125. But the two pictures on this slide really give you a sense of this fall at ETSU. In a typical fall, the skies are blue, the leaves are red, and students are everywhere. But as you all know, this fall began with a bear on campus in front of Gilbert Hall. So 2020's thrown a little bit of everything at us as a university, but it hasn't changed who we are. An institution where we place our people first, an institution where we've responded to COVID a little bit differently than others, in an institution where I'm extremely proud of the work that we've done as a campus to ensure that we're able to provide a safe learning experience for our students, faculty, and staff. The faces of ETSU look a little bit different, but who we are as a university has not changed. I want to give you a little bit of glimpse of how COVID is impacting the landscape of American higher education, both from a budget perspective and then from a health perspective. From a budget perspective, at institutions all across the country, you are seeing reductions in force, significant downturns in the overall operating resources available at universities, and it's impacting their people. At the University of Delaware, for example, a 25% budget reduction is being implemented this fall, and every single employee at that institution is facing furloughs. Yesterday, I read in the Commercial Times appeal from Memphis things that are impacting public universities in this state. But we've gone about it a little bit differently at ETSU, and I'm proud to announce that there have been no major disruptions in the budget landscape of the university, and I'll talk about that in greater detail. From a health perspective, we're all aware of what has happened with respect to the spread of COVID. We've read in the Chronicle about institutions where thousands of students have been placed in quarantine. But I draw your attention to the final bullet because this is the bullet from my perspective that we need to keep in front of us as we move through this fall and into the spring. Our students, our faculty, and our staff are wrestling with mental health issues and the stress of COVID, the stress of isolation, the stress of uncertainty. And as a campus, it's incumbent upon us to ensure that we provide the resources to respond. And through the lead of our mental health team, the Brain Trust, and others, we are putting in place efforts to ensure that we're able to serve our students, faculty, and staff. And earlier this week, Monday and Tuesday, we gave everyone 2 days off to take a break from screens, to take a break from Zoom, to take 2 days to recharge, to refocus, and renew as we now embark upon the close of the fall semester. As I mentioned at ETSU, we've done things a little bit differently. We made the decision based upon the recommendations of the medical response team to take all of our residence halls to single units. As a result, we were able to avoid some of the major outbreaks that you've seen at other institutions across the country. But in doing so, we recognized there'd be a budgetary impact. However, we took care to ensure that our students did not see any budgetary change. And as every student moved into a single room, their room rates did not change. Our course delivery structures were determined by our faculty, not central administration, not the state, but by you, our faculty. The 80-20 distribution that we have online to on-ground for the fall, I anticipate will carry forward into the spring because COVID will still be with us in the months of January, February, March, and April, and we're going to need to ensure that we provide our faculty with the ability to determine their course delivery structures. We've provided operational, rotational flexibility for staff to work from home. We put dashboards online. We've done contact tracing and all the requisite health things that you would expect of a major university. And we've done that under the leadership and guidance of the health team. One thing we've done at the university that's distinctive within the state is surveillance testing. Random testing is available for every student, faculty, and staff member at this institution. To date, almost 900 individuals have registered, and we're now in week 3 of random testing. But we've also reached out and asked folks how they're doing. Not only how are they doing, but what do they think of the job that we're doing at the university as we respond to an ever-fluid landscape. This summer, we surveyed our students about their spring experience. And overall, our students shared with us that the spring experience was outstanding, that they were proud of the work that our faculty had done to help meet their educational needs, that most of the students were extremely confident that the university was taking the right steps to keep them safe. And despite all of the consternation that we were concerned about in the summer, our students responded that they would wear masks, and they have done so all semester long. Earlier this week, I was going through the Culp Center. It was late, a little bit after 8, and every single student in there was abiding by the health recommendations that we've put in place as an institution. So I cannot say enough to thank our students for the way in which they've led by example. And a lot of the challenges and concerns that you read about occurring at other institutions to date have not happened here because of the outstanding leadership of our student body. But we've also surveyed our faculty. In every State of the University address, I talk about the Great Colleges to Work For survey, and we ran it in April. So in the midst of a pandemic, these are the responses that we received across campus about this institution. Job satisfaction went up in the midst of a pandemic. Our teaching environment, professional development, facilities, shared governance, pride, across the board. You reflected upon your membership of the ETSU family, and I'm proud of these survey results. Do we have more work to do? Yes. But these results show who we are as an institution focused on mission, an institution focused on people, and an institution that didn't deviate from its values even in the face of a pandemic. I took this picture on campus the other day, and as you can see, there are not a lot of people here. So our enrollment update is going to look a little bit different than it has in years past. However, we've tried to prepare folks for what the fall would entail. I've shared with the campus throughout the summer, and you'll notice this is a slide you've seen before. National policy entities, places like Fitch and Moody's, the rating agencies and others, have predicted an enrollment decline across American higher education as a result of COVID. And the American Council of Education this summer, when they surveyed presidents, asked presidents what they thought enrollment would look like in the fall. And many of these responses from presidents, in fact, have provided direct evidence as enrollment has now come in and the 14th day is final. So here's the fall enrollment for East Tennessee State University. You can see overall we're down right at 446 students, but we're within our budgeted confidence intervals. So there will be no further budget adjustments to the campus unless something unforeseen occurs coming out of Nashville in the spring. But I feel very good about where we are. Our graduate enrollment's relatively flat, and you see some changes across the professional schools. But all in all, total enrollment down 474. Once again, undergraduate enrollment down 446 within our budgeted confidence intervals. But there are a couple elements across the campus that realized strong basis of enrollment: nursing, psychology, biology, computer science, and management. Programs that are high in demand and programs that responded to that demand. But now let's step back a little bit and look at what's happened across the state. This slide provides information for all the universities in the state of Tennessee. And you'll see across almost every university in the state declines in the number of undergraduate students enrolled. The bulk of the enrollment growth where it has occurred is at the graduate level. You saw many undergraduate students taking that gap year that we feared. But our numbers at ETSU are pretty much right in line with what you're seeing across the state from the university sector. But now let's look at the community colleges, a very different picture. Double-digit enrollment declines across the community colleges. And members of the university community, this will impact us because so many of our students began at community colleges and look to transfer on to ETSU. So as there are fewer students in the pipeline, we've got to begin to prepare for that as that pipeline matriculates on to our campus. I'm concerned about the community college trends from an access perspective because community colleges are the front door through which low-income, first-generation, and working students gain access. Promise has opened the doors of access for citizens of this state, in a way that few other states have afforded. But even with promise, COVID has impacted the college choice decisions, and this impact will be multi-years in terms of its effect. But now let's drop back to East Tennessee State University. From a demographic perspective, this is our student body for the fall. I'm really proud of the fact that even though enrollment has declined slightly, we're a much more diverse campus. Larger numbers of Hispanic and Latina students, larger numbers of African American students. We're a more diverse campus this fall, which aligns with our strategic planning goals. At the bottom of the chart, you see the participation rate by gender. I'm still concerned about the declining number of men going on to college. And we as a university, as we look at the next chapter of strategic planning, really have to examine how we can provide access opportunities for sectors of our region that are being left behind, either voluntarily or because of structural impediments. One of those structural impediments is tuition. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but as you look across our enrollment, you see that enrollment in the state of Tennessee is held relatively firm. Enrollment from our border counties is down, but I draw your attention to the bottom portion of the slide for that international section. In 2016, there were 678 students enrolled at this institution who were international by definition. That number is now 288. If we had simply been able to hold our international enrollment at the levels of 2016, there would have been no enrollment decline. We've been significantly impacted by changes in federal policy, and these numbers aren't coming back anytime soon. It may take a generation for our international enrollments to recover, which is one of the reasons why we're looking to make some adjustments to out-of-state tuition and fees, reducing the price of attendance to thereby open up new markets. Because if we're going to hit our enrollment goals, we have to be aggressive in new markets. And the recent action taken by our Board of Trustees in mid-September was geared towards that new market orientation. Here's our freshman class. Freshman numbers are down, just as they were predicted to be. Many students took a gap year. I'm hopeful those students will come back in the fall. For many first-generation and low-income students, they may not return at all. So how can we reach out to those students and say, we're here, please do not take a pass on college? But as you look at the composition of the freshman class, ACT scores held constant, GPA still right at a 3.5 overall. And then at the bottom, the level of high-achieving students with academic performance scholarships. So from a profile perspective, this freshman class doesn't look any different than any other freshman class. It's just a little smaller in size. Now let's jump ahead. I've talked about the demographic cliff for the better part of a year. And as we look towards the middle part of this decade, we all are aware of the changes that are on the horizon. So how can we take this experience from COVID to retool, to retrain, to adjust our enrollment profile, our recruiting efforts, the manner in which we reach out to students across our region and across the nation? We have to begin preparing for what's to come, and much of this preparation will occur as we embark upon a holistic strategic planning process this year and in next year. But I want to keep this in front of everyone, that as we look at the impact that COVID's had, COVID in many respects is a predictor of what is to come as we see declining numbers of students graduating from high school all across the country. So let's shift and talk a little bit about student success. Today, we released our annual report, copies of which are available on the Office of the President's website. This is a screenshot from that report. I'm extremely proud of that top number, 78%. The highest retention rate in the history of the university was evidenced this fall. This year, more than 3,700 students received their degrees from ETSU. Why are we able to realize this level of student success? Because of the work of our faculty and staff. At every single open house, I say East Tennessee State University is a major comprehensive research university. It's big enough to have all the moving parts, but it's still small enough to retain a family feel, a small college feel. And that's evidenced by that 15-to-1 student-faculty ratio. Our students have the opportunity to engage in undergraduate research, service learning, study abroad, but to build relationships with our faculty because we put an onus on instruction. And that instruction is evidenced in that 15-to-1 ratio. And our students are succeeding. Even in the face of a pandemic, more than 4,100 students made the dean's list. But let's drill into these stats a little bit more. Here's that retention number. This is started at East Tennessee State University, returned to East Tennessee State University in the fall, first-time full-time degree-seeking freshmen, 78%. 78%. Here's a different cut of the same data for last year. This is provided by THEC in the Tennessee Higher Education Commission's annual report. What that shows is a pickup of about 5% on a retention rate because THEC shows start at a university, return anywhere. So if you roll that pickup into here, our retention rate is right at 83%, which is pretty close to what was in our strategic plan for 16 to 26. Now let's talk about graduation rates. Last year at the State of the University address, I said I was pleased to announce the highest graduation rate in the history of the university. Well, I'm pleased to announce it again because we tied last year's rate. 50% of the students who started ETSU graduate from ETSU within the federally prescribed time period. Once again, here's the THEC cut, a 7% bump on that number. So I would anticipate the same for this year. But let's drill down on that THEC data a little bit farther. Now we break out graduation rates by race, by gender, and by Pell eligibility. I draw your attention to the 44.3% for African American students. The number still isn't where we want it to be, but that's a significant increase over where it was last year and the year prior. So the efforts that we have put in place in our Equity and Inclusion Division under the leadership of Dr. Keith Johnson, the work that we're doing in the Mary V. Jordan Multicultural Center is beginning to have an impact. And I look forward to seeing these numbers continue to move in the years to come. We still have a lot of work to do for low-income students. Less than half of our Pell-eligible students graduate on time. But we're making progress. And that progress in the face of a pandemic is something that I'm extremely proud of. This is a scene from the Culp Center. There's no one there. So if you've not been in the Culp Center recently, that's a picture of the cave. We've spaced the Culp Center. A lot of the furniture that we ordered is now in storage, and we look forward to bringing it back when COVID passes. But COVID has impacted the budget, particularly for our auxiliary units, in some pretty interesting and challenging ways, which I'll talk about. Just as a reminder, the bulk of the resources that we receive from the state of Tennessee are predicated on performance. The number of students who graduate, the number of students who move through thresholds of completion. And here's the scorecard upon which we are judged by the state of Tennessee on an annual basis in their distribution of state appropriations. As we all know, last year, we were the top performing institution in the state of Tennessee on the university side of the equation. The number one performing institution in the state was here on the campus of East Tennessee State University. And you see that reflected in the distribution of funding dollars from THEC along those criteria. Here's our distribution in the original budget that was before the General Assembly back in January. Boy, January seems like an eternity ago, but that's the budget that was before the General Assembly in January. But we all know COVID changed things. This summer, as a campus, we all rolled up our sleeves and worked together to explore budget options, budget alternatives, and a variety of scenarios that could be in front of us as a result of this memo that I received from THEC, directing higher education to prepare for a 12% reduction in state appropriations. I cannot thank Governor Lee and the General Assembly enough for their faith in higher education. We're one of the few states in the country that didn't cut our investments in higher ed. As you recall from prior slides, Delaware and Maryland and other states seeing significant reductions in state support. Nashville believes in the transformative power of post-secondary education to open doors of opportunity and to grow and diversify our economy. And that belief was represented by the actions taken by the state to hold our appropriations constant, while all other aspects of state government took a 12% cut. Us and K-12 were held harmless. As a result of that, we as an institution received the following revised budget from THEC, but we still had to make some budget adjustments because of the declining enrollment. I'm proud of the work that the campus has done to make these adjustments. And I'm also proud of the manner in which we worked through this process in a shared governance spirit over the course of the summer. That scenario 2 is what we implemented. Once again, as a reminder to campus, administrative units took a 5.3% reduction to base budgets. The colleges and academic units took a 4.3% adjustment. Central administration took more. We always will take more as we face budget challenges in the years to come. But hopefully we're not facing budget challenges in the year to come because of the manner in which we're operating the university. So as we looked at that implementation, we moved through some things that everyone's familiar with. I'm pleased to announce to the campus that earlier this month, we distributed $1.8 million in fallout resources predicated on our budget model to the units all across the campus. Prior to the implementation of the decentralized budget model, those funds would have been retained by central administration. However, in concert with the spirit of that model, those resources were distributed back to the campus through the model. We're moving through a little bit of belt tightening, and I encourage all of us to continue to be wise stewards of our resources as we go through the rest of the academic year. I don't know what COVID's going to throw at us, but I know it's going to continue to be present. We've got to hold firm on vacant positions. We need to ensure that any new investments we make are investments that are aligned with academic quality and student success. We implemented a voluntary retirement incentive program. More than 100 members of the university family have participated in that program. And there are significant figures who have provided leadership at this institution for decades who will be leaving the university at the close of this year. I want to thank them for all that they've done to move this institution forward. And it's our responsibility as members of the university family to build upon their legacy, to keep focused on student success, and to keep moving this institution forward. But as we look at 2021 and the years to come, we have to ensure that we're strategic in how we fill some of these vacancies because of the uncertainties of COVID, as well as looming challenges from a demographic perspective that I referenced earlier in my address. Just briefly, we received CARES funding from the federal government as part of the distributions in 3 tranches. The bulk of all of these resources were directed towards students. Once again, an ETSU difference and an ETSU advantage. Rather than putting some straight across-the-board formula together, we hand-calculated refunds for students to ensure that we maximize the resources going back, treating each student individually with respect. That took a while, but in the end, our students received housing refunds and meal plan refunds in a way that few other institutions in public higher education afforded. And as we look at what's to come, there still are some emergency funds available for students who are facing financial crises as they move through the fall semester. So to our students who are at home or who are watching this from on campus, if you're wrestling with financial challenges, please take advantage of some of the funds that are available, reaching out to our Division of Student Affairs, who can help you if you need a micro grant or a micro loan. In every State of the University address, I touch upon salary. One of our strategic planning goals is to move towards the middle of our peer set. We're not there. We've not closed the gap to the extent that I would like, but we have made progress. We've made progress both with respect to faculty salaries as well as staff salaries. But we have more work to do. And I want to shift gears a little bit. You can tell this is a COVID socially distanced picture. This was our Outstanding Staff Awards presentation that we held earlier this summer. These individuals were recognized by their peers for the service that they provide to this institution. I want to draw particular attention to the individual in the middle, Lieutenant Mike Orr, and thank him for his service. Lieutenant Orr will be retiring at the close of this year. He was recognized by staff as the Outstanding Career Service Award recipient. But every single one of the individuals on this screen is dedicated to the mission of this institution. Unfortunately, as a campus, we all couldn't gather together and celebrate, so virtually, I say thank you to them today. In the annual report that is available on the Office of the President's website, you'll see as you move through that document opportunities to celebrate the success of our university. And I want to draw particular focus to the work of the Patricia Robertson Pride Center that we founded this year. Public universities invest in people. They provide resources to support people, and they support, protect, and embrace diversity. We're doing that at our institution through the work at the Pride Center, through the work at the Mary V. Jordan Multicultural Center. But we're also doing that through the work of Dr. Keith Johnson and his staff and the entire campus as a whole. Our goal is HEED certification, the highest level of certification that an institution can receive in the area of equity and inclusion. That's what public universities do. And I'm proud of the values that are being modeled by this public university. But I'm also proud of the work of our students. You see the work of our students to model our service values. Our mission is to improve the quality of life for the people of this region. And as you see on the screen, students being recognized as the top volunteer in their organization. Grayson Jennings being recognized by Governor Lee to serve on advocacy and outreach committees at the highest level. At the highest level, our students model our values. But those values also are modeled in excellence. While the voices of Grayscale and other groups are not present across campus this fall, they're still out doing the things that they do. And in this past year, they received international recognition, state recognition, as some of the most outstanding vocal performance groups in the country. And I look forward to having them back, particularly in this building, so we can bring life and sound to this building that we've all waited more than 4 decades for. I'm proud of the work of our faculty. Our faculty are actively engaged in research and service. Dr. Agrawal received more than a $1.85 million R01 grant. But Dr. Ben Caton here, you see modeled on the screen, was recognized by his peers as the Outstanding Faculty Member of the Year by the Tennessee Music Teachers Association. Dr. Caton was part of this institution's family as a faculty member for more than 46 years. But he also was a student here. And a few weeks ago, in the cave at the Culp Center, we had the opportunity to say thank you and goodbye to Dr. Caton. So to Dr. Caton and all of the faculty who will be transitioning away from this institution and retiring, thank you for what you've done. And the faces on the screen are carrying your mission and your commitment to excellence forward, and that excellence is exemplified by what they're doing in the service space, as well as the nationally competitive grants that we're bringing to our university. But another thing that we're doing to invest in the next generation is supporting our faculty. In the middle of this slide, you see our 3 presidential fellows that were selected, Dr. Hagemeyer, Dr. Plaha, and Dr. Quinn, all of whom are spending this year honing their skills, broadening their skill sets, and investing in their futures, so that hopefully in time they can have a level of success, and they're already outstanding in their own merits, similar to the other faces on the screen, individuals recognized for excellence at a national level. I draw particular attention to Dr. Cerrone Foster, who was noted as one of the top 100 faculty members of color in the country. But now let's step back again. Much of that excellence is provided by the resource of individuals who invest in this institution. Donors, alumni who provide philanthropic support for the university. As you're aware, we're in the middle of a capital campaign. To date, we've raised $84.6 million towards our $125 million goal. I'm proud of the fact that the overall corpus of the endowment has rebounded. At the beginning of the COVID outbreak, that number had dropped to less than $90 million. But under the wise leadership of Pam Ritter and General Ron Haidt, the chair of our foundation board, that fund has returned to prior levels. Now, why is that important? Because scholarships and endowed chairs are funded by those endowment earnings. And I'm pleased to welcome back to the campus Ms. Whitney Getz, an alum of the university, who is the new director of the ETSU Alumni Association. But now let's talk about how that impact of a foundation impacts our community. We launched this year something that was among the most exciting things I've had a chance to observe, and that's ETSU Elevates. Throughout the spring, community members came to this campus and competed in a Shark Tank type competition for support, for service, and engagement opportunities with the university. And the faces on the screen represent some of the community groups that were recognized as winners. We'll launch ETSU Elevates again in the spring when COVID allows, but ETSU Elevates is just one example of hundreds of ways in which we as an institution are engaged with our communities to make a difference in the lives of the people of our region. In the area of research, really pleased to once again remind the campus of the work of the Brain Trust, led by Dr. Wally Dixon, that is supported by Ballard resources, state resources, and institutional resources. Work that is occurring to help ensure that we as a campus are fully informed and engaged in trauma-informed care. The work of this group is not only going to be of immeasurable benefit to this campus during the period of COVID, but it's going to help transform the way we look at our students and their backgrounds and how those backgrounds impact learning outcomes in the months and years to come. And we're all aware of the Center for Rural Health Research at the university that once again funded by the state, ballot, and institutional resources, that this fall semester was designated as one of the top centers of rural health research in the nation as we received significant federal funding to support those operations. So from teaching, research, and service, despite COVID, this institution continues to move forward. And I cannot thank our faculty and our staff enough for the work that you have done to ensure that we as a university do not lose sight of the importance of that teaching, research, and service, the triad mission of the university. And that's reflected in rankings. Now, a lot of rankings up on the screen, but there's a point in here that I want to draw your attention to, and it doesn't have a number next to it, but it has a mortarboard, and it reads as follows. The U.S. News and World Report recognized East Tennessee State University among its top performers on social mobility for successfully graduating students who received federal Pell Grants. I've often said that there are institutions that view themselves as cities on a hill, and then there are places like us, comprised of hardworking people who built the hill. Now, do we have programs of excellence? Yes. Rad Tech program, ranked number 3 in the country. University School, ranked number 8 in the state of Tennessee. Our program in digital media, ranked number 1 in the state and top 8 in the South. Our coaching education program, ranked top 10 in the country. And I could go on with rankings. But if your focus is only on rankings and it's not on mission, you've missed the picture. And that's why I'm so proud of that designation by U.S. News and World Report that we're a top performing institution in the country in terms of social mobility. But I'm extremely proud of the work that's occurred in the College of Nursing. And I want to thank Dr. Wendy Nearing for her leadership. But the faculty, the college, the collective entity of students, faculty, and staff have moved that college forward. And you see that movement reflected in these rankings. Number 1, RN to BSN program in the state of Tennessee. Number 1, DNP program. Top 10 affordable online doctorate program. And you can read the rankings for themselves. In addition to being the largest public college of nursing in the state of Tennessee, I'd put our quality up against any college in the nation. So let's talk a little bit about vision. Let's talk a little bit about where we are as an institution here in 2020, and where do we want to be by the end of this decade. I love this picture because there's a lot happening in this picture. But let's focus on the graduates. Individuals who are getting ready to walk across the stage, shake someone's hand, and receive the degree. They're not focused on that moment. They're focused on what comes next. Their career in graduate school, their first job after college, the opportunity to go to med school or law school. They're focused strategically on their future. And as we embark upon a new decade at ETSU, it's incumbent upon us to ensure that we're focused on our future as a university. This is President Sidney Gilbreth. Tomorrow's October 10th, Founders Day at the university. And as we celebrate Founders Day, it's appropriate for us to reflect upon the founding mission of this institution, a mission that hasn't changed, and that is to improve the quality of life for the people of the region. It hasn't changed over time, and it hasn't changed as a result of COVID. In 2012, we launched the Committee for 125, and I've talked about the Committee for 125 ever since, because that group helped us as a university frame a vision for where we wanted to be as a campus in 2036, when we would celebrate our 125th anniversary. And strategic visioning is part of who we are as a university. In '86, under the leadership of then President Ron Beller, we penned a document called Turning Towards 2011, which framed a vision for this institution at the centennial. This building was part of that vision. Sometimes visions take a while to materialize, but if your vision is constant and consistent, you will ultimately achieve your goals. The Committee for 125 set a broad vision for the university, that we would be the hub for this region. And here you see that vision. You all are familiar with this. We've been talking about it for years. What are the themes that were part of 125? I just want to do this as a reminder. We'd be focused on building our civic partnerships. Those civic partnerships are once again exemplified here as the city and the county came together to support this building. But as we look across the things that we do, it's that final bullet for me that's important: stewardship of place. Because an institution can only be as strong as its community. And the community of Northeast Tennessee and the Appalachian Highlands as a whole helps to define who we are as an institution. We're stewards of the place that we call home. So what did we accomplish? We started 125 in 2010. What have we accomplished? Well, these were our 5-year objectives. We said we were going to examine our budget and finance systems. We did that. We put in place a new structure model for the institution with respect to revenue distribution. We said we were going to revisit institutional advancement and bring institutional advancement into a way that allowed us to launch a capital campaign, and we structured it top to bottom. When we started 125, we had more than 100 logos. Now we have one for one university. We restructured student affairs. All of the things we said we would do in that first bullet point, we've accomplished. Our facilities master plan, all the elements in the facilities master plan, we've pretty much moved to fruition. And we've expanded our outreach and partnerships with business and community organizations. So now let's then step back at a 10-year horizon. We've targeted new investments in signature programs. I referenced the Center for Rural Health. We've fully developed this arts complex, and if it weren't for COVID, we already would have had the ribbon cutting and a fantastic celebration, which will occur just at some point in 2021. We said we were going to launch a comprehensive fundraising campaign. We've done it. We're $84 million in. We said we were going to continue to meet, if not exceed, the mandates of the Complete College Tennessee Act. We were the #1 ranking university in the state this past year. So let's check that bullet. And then we're going to continue to enhance the physical infrastructures of the university. That is underway as well. And we will be breaking ground on the addition to Lamb Hall in this academic year. So what changed? What's different now than in 2012, minus COVID? Well, when we began this, there wasn't a board of trustees. The Focus Act didn't exist. When we began this journey, there was no Tennessee Promise. There was no UT Promise. When we began this journey, there was not the focused competition by online universities. And we all know with COVID, the pronounced shifts that have occurred in distance education. In 12, the demographic cliff was not even on our minds. Affordability and student debt was, but those next two, public perceptions of higher education and a lack of trust in immigration policy, that's a landscape change, a shift that impacts not only our university, but universities across the nation. So let's drill in on that element. This is an election cycle. Earlier this week, I watched the vice presidential debate. Presidential debates, there's 2 more to go between now and election day. But this chart isn't about politics. It's not about elections. It's about the faith and trust that people have in our universities. So 84% of all Americans feel that college costs are too high. 65% feel that students aren't getting the skills that they need to be competitive in the workforce. And then there's a view that we're looking to protect our students and we're bringing our biases into the classroom. That's what Americans think of universities. Many think that college isn't good for the country. Many think that college does not have a positive impact on this nation as a whole. These are troubling statistics. So what can we as an institution do to focus on these statistics? Because we all know that as educational attainment increases, your likelihood of full employment and earnings increases throughout your lifetime. But the narrative's gotten away from us because we've not focused on mission, we've not focused on impact, and we've not told the story as an institution or as the academy of what we do to improve the quality of life for the people of our regions, of our states, and of the nation as a whole. So let's drill down on that a little bit more. The Drive to 55, the Complete College Tennessee Act, was all focused on increasing educational attainment for Tennesseans. Now, we've made progress. In 1990, 60% of Tennesseans had a bachelor's degree. Now that number is 27.3%. But we still have some work to do to reach the average of the nation or to hit the 55% benchmark that was part of that statewide strategic plan. But I want to pull this back and talk about it and look at it in a different way, because sometimes you get lost in big numbers. I want all of you all to think back of what it was like to be in the 9th grade. For me, it was kind of an embarrassing time. My hair parted in the middle. I was trying to start to grow a mustache that still is something that my friends make fun of to this day. But if you would have asked me when I was in the 9th grade, how many of my peers would have gone on to college, I would have thought most. And if you would have asked how many of my peers would have graduated from college, I would have thought most. Now, for those of you who are parents who have children in the 9th grade, ask yourself the same question about your children and your children's peers. But now, let's look at the numbers. In our state, of every 100 9th graders, how many graduate from high school on time? 90. How many go on to college the following fall? 62. How many graduate from college on time? 27. 27. Let that sink in for a minute. Of every 100 9th graders, 27 graduate from college. Members of the university community, for me, this is where we as an institution can have an impact. Because our roots trace back to being a normal school, to educate teachers to go into the rural areas of the state and pass along the beauty of education. Our ability to transform Northeast Tennessee and the Appalachian Highlands to meet our mission at its core is focused on how do we improve these four numbers, 100 to 90 to 62 to 27. And I'm going to talk a lot about these four numbers in the years to come, because the work that we do in TRIO, the work that we do in engagement, the work that we do in bridge programs, our retention efforts, study abroad, undergraduate research, high impact practices, all are engaged and focused on moving these numbers. So now let's pull back up and talk about the plan. This chart comes right from our 2016 to 26 strategic plan. We're now over in the closing the loop portion. We're going to view what we did. I've done some of that this morning. We're going to celebrate what worked, and we're going to celebrate a lot this fall. We're going to provide some changes, and then we're going to implement. That strategic planning framework on the far right side of the slide is what leads me to 125 Chapter 2. And I'm pleased to announce today the launch of Chapter 2 of the Committee for 125. But a lot of work's already been underway. And as you look at the bullets on this screen, you'll see, yeah, we've done that during a pandemic. We've done that during a pandemic, and we've done that during a pandemic. March 2020 seems like a million years ago, but in March, the strategic leadership team went to EAB, and we spent several days in a retreat focused on the launch for 125 and how we would take this year to really build a vision for the university. Well, COVID delayed that a little bit, but it didn't delay our work. We've looked at the marketing efforts of this campus, and we'll be working through the implementation of some of the results of that work as we go through the fall. Dr. Jim Bitter has chaired our Community Engagement Task Force. I received their recommendations in September. We'll start to implement that work throughout the fall. Our Equity and Inclusion Strategic Plan was approved by the Board of Trustees in September. That work is already moving through implementation. We've undertaken a scholarship review. You've seen changes to scholarships, more to come. Our tuition reset for out-of-state students, all of this is embedded within the work of what will be the Committee for 125, Chapter 2, leading us towards a vision for one ETSU. And I want to thank a number of individuals who are serving in interim capacities, as deans, as division directors, as heads of units. You've taken on additional responsibility. Many of you have moved these initiatives forward. So to our interim leaders, thank you for the work that you're doing. And I look forward to that work continuing as we move into 2021. So what's going to happen this fall? We're going to conduct surveys. We're going to hold focus groups. We're going to reach out and gain feedback from key constituents about their hopes, dreams, and aspirations for the university. But we're also going to reflect upon the accomplishments of this institution over the past decade, and in a COVID-responsible way, celebrate those accomplishments. And I want to draw your attention to the focus group bullets, because sometimes people think, well, you're going to survey folks, you're going to hold focus groups, but what really comes of that? This fall, we've held focus groups with students, faculty, and staff. In particular, myself, Dr. Mike Hoff, and members of the staff have met with students, asking them how's the fall going? How's the experience in the classroom? What's the experience like on campus? You know you're at a wonderful place when the first thing that every single student focus group said was, can the library be open longer? And I want to thank Dean Adkins and his staff for listening and responding. We've expanded our library hours. Next, they asked if Starbucks could be open longer. Check, that one is accomplished. Thank you, Dr. Joe Sherlin. But we're going to continue to listen, we're going to continue to act, but this feedback is then going to inform the work that we do in 2021. And here's what 2021 will hold. a top-to-bottom evaluation of the institution's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. In March, we'll form the second phase of the Committee for 125, which will be comprised of leadership of our Board of Trustees, outside policy experts, and others to help push the institution towards an aggressive strategic vision. We're going to go through that strategy development in March through September. Hopefully, COVID will pass and we'll have the opportunity to fill rooms such as this and engage in a lot of the visioning work that we did now almost a decade ago. And if all of this comes together on time, this time next year at the State of the University Address, we will release the vision and the work that emerges as we strive together to create one ETSU. So in closing, I want to thank you. This is not a typical State of the University address. I would have now opened the floor for questions. We will hold another town hall between now and the close of the semester to take those questions. But I want to thank you for your unwavering commitment to this university. Our story this year is different than the story of other institutions. We've not furloughed our faculty and staff at large scales like you've seen at other universities. Our enrollment is within budget and confidence intervals. We've embraced our values, focused on diversity, open centers that serve students. We've been ETSU. We've done it our way, a distinctive way. And I'm proud to be a part of this university community and this university family. I cannot thank you enough for what you have done to serve this university. All of us, our students who are complying with our safety requirements, our mask mandates, our staff who are there on a daily basis, ensuring that our students and faculty have the things that they need to teach, to research, to serve, and our faculty for the work that you do in the classrooms. We will announce next week, after we meet with the University Council, what the spring will look like. We'll announce some changes to the calendar. We'll talk a little bit about some things around commencement, but today's not the day for those announcements. Today's the day to focus on vision, to share success, and to say thank you. So on behalf of our Board of Trustees, again, thank you for all that you do for this great university. Godspeed to everyone, and go Bucks.